Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to WQRF's second summer school session of 2025. Join us each month through August, and we look forward to covering hot topics in water all summer long. My name is Lilia, and I'm the project coordinator here at WQRF. Tanya, WQA's professional certification and training director, is also on the webinar and will be facilitating our Q&A later. I want to give a special thanks to Calgon Carbon Corporation for sponsoring the entire summer school series. We are grateful for their support in making this education free for all stakeholders in water. We will email you a recording of today's webinar, but you can also visit our website at wqrf.org/webinars to see the recordings. Jill Notini is our presenter today and will highlight the risks of counterfeit water filters. We'll take an in-depth look at how counterfeit filters enter the market, the health risks of uncertified products, and how you can protect consumers. Jill Notini is the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers Vice President of Communications and Marketing. In her role, Jill leads member communications and media and consumer outreach. She also manages AHAM's shipment data programs, market research initiatives, and oversees membership recruitment and events. Jill has developed and executed consumer safety education campaigns and category promotion programs to raise awareness of safety issues and highlight the key benefits of home appliances. Jill also developed an award-winning appliance donation program called Home Sweet Home, which provided appliances to those rebuilding from Hurricane Katrina. She is a member of the American Society of Association Executives and has served on the board of directors of the Consumer Trends Forum International and the program committee of the Electrical Safety Foundation International. Jill was named Dealerscope Magazine's 40 Under 40, named PR News's 15 to Watch, and named PR News's Top Women in PR for 2017. Jill graduated from American University with a BA in Public Communications. So with that, I will turn it over to Jill to begin her presentation.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you to Lily and thank you to Tanya and all of WQA for inviting me to present today. For those of you on the call, you're obviously members of WQA, a wonderful trade organization, and I'm part of AHAM, which is the trade organization that represents the home appliance industry. So our members are everyone from recognized home appliance brands in your kitchen, in your laundry rooms, and throughout your home. And AHAM has a lot of important efforts that we do on behalf of the industry, from advocacy to standards development to data collection activities and general promotion of the industries. But Filter It Out in this program is one that is special because it hits on kind of all of these efforts. It ties everything that we do together, from advocacy to standards to consumer education, talking about safety, and really is one that impacts members and retailers and mostly consumers, because it's about trying to stop or slow the efforts of counterfeiters that are producing replacement refrigerator filters. So today I'd like to talk to you about this program, how we got it started, what that effort looked like, what the outcomes are, and how you can talk to consumers about the dangers of counterfeit refrigerator filters as well. We're all familiar with counterfeits. Unfortunately, I think that we are most often talking and seeing on the news about expensive designer clothes and Louis Vuitton handbags and Rolex watches that have been made counterfeit and sold. But it's really important to note here that it's not just those products. It's not just ball caps and NFL goods or MLB goods. It's also the more mundane products in your life. And this is where things get scary. Frankly, it can be your toothpaste. It can be contact lenses, can be your water filters, even wine. So things that you're ingesting and putting into your body can also be counterfeit. And these are not the items that are top of mind for consumers when they're shopping online. They're not really aware of the dangers of counterfeits and how far and wide these scammers will go to try to make a money play. Even oftentimes we've seen that some sellers are selling legitimate products on the internet. They're selling maybe 10 or 20 or 30 legitimate products in their stores, and then they have one or two products that are counterfeit. So really truly deceiving items here, and it's very problematic. So I want to show you first and tell you exactly what we're talking about today. This is two refrigerator water filters. The product, you can see the difference in the products. The product on the left is, you can see that there are some water ripples, that it says refrigerator water filter. You have, some wording on the side. The filter on my right is shinier. The plastic is a little bit whiter, brighter, and again, shinier. The graphics are not as they're not as detailed. You don't have the same flow of water that you can see on the left-hand product. But overall, that filter on the right, it looks pretty good. It looks attractive. Again, even the plastic looks a little bit brighter, a little bit shinier. But that filter on the right is actually one that is counterfeit. And so you can see by this example here, the counterfeiters are doing a very good job of not only mimicking the labels and the brands and the design of the label, but they're also sometimes going above and beyond, to even put it into a more attractive casing, something that's shinier, even than the basic plastic, but they are different. And the filter on the right is counterfeit and could be causing danger in your home. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the challenge. Again, we know that counterfeit and deceptively labeled filters and other products are flooding US markets. They're sold online every day. And in fact, I just read a story at the beginning of this week about the start of the tariffs, and that because of the tariffs and potential rise of costs on goods, people are going to be looking more for deals online. So this is a time where people are going to be shopping based on price and looking for a good deal out there. So we know that these counterfeiters may try to take advantage of even these conditions in the market. The filters that we have seen, that we have tested, they often fail to meet safety and structural standards. And these are standards that are expected by consumers, but they are used by manufacturers. And obviously, regulators are helping to set these safety and structural standards for products. And so it's often very concerning when these filters are made with plastics that are not food grade plastics. We have seen the filter inside these, when we've opened up counterfeit filters, they've not been made of carbon blocks. Some of them have been made of burned nuts, like even peanut shells and casings. And so they're packing together that carbonated burns material. We've seen some filters that have had rocks inside, creating that sort of to simulate the weight of a genuine filter. And consumers, what's most concerning is they're buying this product thinking that they're buying genuine, thinking that, okay, maybe they're getting a cheaper price than a brand name product, but they're really trying to do something good for their families, good for themselves. And the other issue is that they're not using it once. A filter is rated for 400 gallons of water. They are doing it over and over and over again through their 8-ounce glass of water every day. So the problem also is that when you install this filter, we know from testing that there are challenges not only in health and safety, that there's a failure to remove contaminants by and large from counterfeit filters. We have done the testing, and I'll talk a little bit more about the testing soon, but we have done testing to show that these filters could actually be adding chemicals to the water, including arsenic. So they're not only failing to remove and claiming that they're going to remove contaminants and failing to do it, they are adding arsenic and other cancer-causing chemicals into the water. So extremely problematic here. How did we know about this challenge and about this concern that was happening? This is actually quite interesting. We had a number of manufacturers that were receiving calls on their customer service line saying, I had a filter, I installed it in my refrigerator, and now I have a leak all over my floor, and it's caused this major water damage issue in my kitchen. And when manufacturers would investigate, they would say, could you talk to us about the filter? Could you send us the filter? They would learn that, in fact, these are counterfeit filters that are being installed. And so when you have a poor design in the filter, when you have the structural integrity that's not there in the filter, you can have freezing, you can have bursting, you can have cracking in these filters, and that is what is causing the damage to occur in kitchens throughout the home. So not just around the water, but it's also around property damage. So another real selling point to having genuine products is that they have been tested not only to drinking water system standards, and not only in your case of your WQA members, not only certified to those standards, but they will also know that they have been designed to fit into the refrigerator. They have been designed to fit and not cause leaks and damage to your kitchen when you're using a genuine product. So really, I think capitalizing on those points as you're thinking about genuine versus non-genuine standards is a really important talking point. Also to note here that, again, it's WQA, it's other organizations like NSF and IAPMO, but we're here today with WQA. They are pouring the resources into the standards, the technology, the testing, and into backing their own mark so that consumers know and trust that this product has been tested to fit into the product and that it will work within the entire refrigeration system. So let me talk to you a little bit more. So we started getting these phone calls from our members. It's not a typical type of phone call that AHAM would receive, but they were saying, we're starting to hear more from consumers on our customer service lines that there are these floods and we're checking into the filters and they are not our filters that they're using. How can we create some awareness around this issue? So we actually talked to all of our refrigerator brand manufacturers. There are 17 of them that decided to partner together to launch this program called Filter It Out, which has been in the market since 2018, but is still an active effort even now to raise awareness around counterfeit issues and to help consumers search for products that they can trust. There are three of the primary certification agencies that partnered with us on this effort. So I want to give a special shout out to WQA. AHAM actually received a grant from the foundation to help with the testing, which was wonderful so that we could actually have data to be grounded in factual, credible data to show the effects of these non-genuine counterfeit filters. And the other organization provided testing services as well. So here's a quick look. These are not just refrigerator brands. These are also the companies that are making and certifying your filters that go into your products as replacements. Okay. And also, I think that Lillian mentioned, but we are taking questions throughout the webinar as well. So if there are questions or something comes to mind, please feel free to put a question into the Q&A, and that will be read to me at the end of this. So on the research side, any good campaign really has to be grounded in research. Otherwise, it will sound, they'll say, "Oh, how do you know? How do you really know?" So we actually started this whole entire campaign of Filter It Out, knowing that we needed to do some research. We knew that there were problems out there. What we didn't know, honestly, was how bad it was. We just didn't know what we didn't know at the time. So really, we knew about the claims around the damage to property when a filter would burst or when a filter would crack, but we didn't know was that the counterfeit filters or deceptively labeled filters would actually have chronic health and safety issues for consumers that are using them time and time again. We really wanted the research to be able to not just speak to consumers, but also to have a credible body of work that we could take to the government and that we could take to retailers to ask them to step in and make changes or to help us amplify the message here. On the right side of my screen is the cover to our report called The Danger of Counterfeit Filters. This is a report that you can access online at filteritout.org. We have a tab at the top in the navigation called See the Proof. See the Proof is where you can look to to read more and download this report, which you will see that we purchased 100 filters from online sources. We also had in hand the genuine filters from our manufacturers so that we had a set and we could test them side by side. And we knew that the genuine products were meeting the standards that had been set, and that the non-genuine products that were purchased online from known counterfeit entities were not meeting this type of testing. So a special chart here, and call out again to Water Quality Association and to the other testing groups that helped us with this very important part. Establishing these partnerships and engaging in this testing work was really the proof that we needed to be able to say, not only do we now know what we thought was happening, but also we learned some very compelling information when we did the lead testing, the cyst testing, and mostly the extraction testing, which is a test that it takes a long time to run that test. But you'll see in our research report, we found that there were more than 10 different cancer-causing chemicals that were being leached into the water supply from the counterfeit filters. And that was probably the biggest, most eye-opening concern, was, again, that not all product safety incidents are acute. It's not like, like falling off your bike and your helmet, cracking, and you know what's happening right then and there, and it happens one time. With a filter, you are using it over a period of time. You're buying a 3-pack of filters, or you're going back to that same online seller. So you're repeating the behavior, and that's something that is concerning, because we know that these counterfeit filters were failing every single test, from the cyst testing to the extraction testing, adding things into the water, and also the lead testing again. So we knew that with this body of research, we needed to start educating consumers and the government and others, because again, if we go back to that very first slide, a lot of us are thinking about, handbags and is it authentic? And we're not thinking about the most mundane products. We're thinking about the quick hits that we can purchase online, or we can set up subscription services. And you may not be thinking about whether your laundry detergent or your toothpaste or your tooth whitener or anything that you're using in your home is counterfeit or not. So we set up filteritout.org as really the hub for credible information and resources related to this issue. You all can go on, you can download information. If there's anything on there that, perhaps you're a dealer, perhaps you have a store, if there's anything that you see from that site that you think might help, or you want to have it on site when you are talking to consumers, we would be happy to provide that to you and to help work with you to get the information out. But we're trying to highlight the importance of selecting a filter that works as expected, and to demonstrate, that you could be walking into something that you really don't know what you're getting. We want to also verify the concern, being very data-driven and grounded. As an association, this is something that is really kind of core to our values and the way we operate, is having data to be able to speak to people, to say, this is real, this is the truth about what's happening out there, and then to be able to connect people with reliable sources for trusted filters. So you can see here that, we're trying to very quickly on the site educate and talk about, even for people who have contamination in their water supply, don't fall for filters that aren't up to industry standards. So trying to do a bit of education on the standards, but then also to, advocate for why the government should get involved and continue to amplify our message, and then to be able to connect people to finding a proper filter for their product. I'm going to, all of our videos are on the Filter It Out website. There's a bunch of them that are very good, that will show you the entire process from purchasing a filter to it being tested, and then what the outcomes were. So I won't show you this video today, but I will show you one in just a few minutes. I also want to note here that Filter It Out, it's a social and digital campaign as well. And this is something that, is really important, because we need to be talking to people even when they're not necessarily thinking about the issue. So where can we meet? People are on Facebook, people are on Instagram, they're, on X, looking for information and trying to, understand what they need to know. And this is something that they don't necessarily know that they need to know, but it's something that we need to be there when they're on Facebook, when they're on X. We need to pop in here and let people know that, hey, during times of a heat wave, during times in January, when you're starting your new exercise routine and you're thinking about drinking more water and staying hydrated, it's time for all of us to get the message out there. So even for anyone that's watching today, if you have social media, please feel free to amplify, to jump on board. There have been many campaigns, even since the start of Filter It Out. Different groups have warned about the dangers, to try to call awareness to this issue. But even, UL and the Department of Homeland Security, the IPR Center, these are all entities that will help extend the message and talk about counterfeit. So it's important that you build that into your messaging as well. Okay, let me go to the next slide. Okay, here's a video that I would like to show for you. This involves a little bit of me adjusting my sound. So give me just 1 second here. This is a good one for you to hear. All right, let me hit play.
A mystery tonight about fake water filters. Stretches from Michigan to New York with strange clues that shed light on a growing problem: counterfeit refrigerator filters.
Here is Investigate TV's Lee Zurich from our national investigative team with fake filters.
Let's go to the subway. Hopefully this is right.
If we're trying to get the J train towards Broad Street,
right here on this crosswalk.
Right here. Here's our train.
A 50-minute subway ride from Midtown Manhattan. 6 stops.
There's the sign for Brooklyn.
Stairs, then a short walk to 63rd Street in Brooklyn. That street 750 miles away from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and the home of Ken Gold. When Gold needed a replacement for his refrigerator water filter,
I went looking online for options.
his mouse took him to a company called SupDrop and a water filter that looked like a reliable replacement.
The packaging looked pretty legitimate to me.
But it wasn't. When the filter arrived, instead of SupDrop, it came with an Every Drop label. That's the brand name of filters Whirlpool manufactures. This filter looked a lot like a Whirlpool filter you can buy direct from the company. When they're next to each other, it's hard to tell the difference.
Annoyed at myself, angry that someone would do that, surprised as well. I didn't know that counterfeit water filters were such a big thing.
But the counterfeit water filter industry is huge.
There are billions of dollars of goods coming into our country.
Millions of counterfeit filters.
You can find them anywhere online. Major retailer websites, places you go every day for other products as well.
Jill Notini works for the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers, or AHAM. She showed us 2 more filters. Can you pick out which is fake and which is real?
It is absolutely almost impossible to tell the difference between the counterfeit and the genuine filter.
I mean, same logo.
Same logos, same stickers on the top of the product, same markings and indentations on the bottom, the same writing along the side, and you see even the certification symbol that's included, and the same manufacturer logos and graphics.
This is the real one, and this is the counterfeit.
They do this to dupe you.
And AHAM says some counterfeit filters can be dangerous.
Could people be drinking unsafe water because of these counterfeit filters?
Absolutely.
Last year, AHAM paid for a study on counterfeit filters, buying 100 known counterfeits and shipping them to a lab for testing. The result, the counterfeit filters didn't work as well as the brand name.
We found in our study that the counterfeits are actually putting cancer-causing chemicals into clean water. That is very scary and a real threat to the American public.
Whirlpool confirmed the filter Ken Gold bought in Michigan is a counterfeit. Tracking down that company's SupDrop proved to be tougher. On the company's website, when you click to view the location, it takes you to Manhattan, steps away from the Park Central Hotel. But there's no sign the company operates at that location. We tried ordering our own package of SupDrop filters. When we did, our receipt ended up showing 3 different company names. It's been weeks. We have no filters, and the company won't answer us. A call to the listed phone number,
call rejected,
repeatedly gets rejected. New York State records show no business license for a company named SupDrop. And that takes us back to 63rd Street in Brooklyn.
This definitely didn't check out.
When the filter arrived at Ken Gold's house, it came with a Brooklyn return address. So we went to the location, or at least tried.
It doesn't look like a business at all. It locates me back to residential area.
We walked the residential area looking for 1030 63rd Street. But when we arrived,
1028.
a counterfeit address
That's 1032.
for a company Whirlpool says is sending customers counterfeit water filters. Lee Zurich, WMC Action News 5.
Okay.
A mystery tonight about.
Okay, great. So let me see if I can just go back to 1 second. Okay. Thanks for that. I think that investigative TV report really ties it all together. From the problem to, the consumer awareness, to the testing of these filters. And also it gets at the idea that these counterfeiters set up businesses and take them down and pop them up under a different name faster than we can act. Unfortunately, counterfeiting, I think, is always going to be a challenge. It's always going to be there. And that's why it really takes all of us. We can go after the counterfeiters alone, but we're gonna just, whack-a-mole and just really get a little sliver of what can be done there. It is a constant effort, and it really requires us to, as manufacturers, talk about this issue. Let consumers know what else is out there on the market and how they could be going astray. To, as certification bodies, to be promoting your certification and what it means and how to look for and how to read and how to identify a trusted mark. It also involves retail partnerships and making sure that we have all of the right players around the table that can set up systems and processes to try to push out the counterfeiters. So again, a few lessons about this campaign. It's that this sustained effort is necessary. You can't set up, filter it out for 1 year, can't set up any type of counterfeit effort for just a short period. It really needs sustained education. Earlier this year, we were on the Hill with Filter It Out. So we were actually in the House of Representatives building doing a whole showcase of counterfeit products. There were hair dryers, there were pharmaceuticals, there were these filters that we had out on the table to keep educating even lawmakers to say, we need policies to help drive out the counterfeiters and the bad actors from the market. We need to create these partnerships. So again, thank you to WQA. I'll be forever indebted for that partnership on helping to, extend our messaging, to keep talking about counterfeit and how the negative impacts of these purchases. And then, of course, government support. So going to Consumer Product Safety Commission and talking about how hazards are not only acute, but they can be chronic over time. Working with the Homeland Security and even the IPR Center, we have had a number of seizures because of this campaign. The Centers of Excellence that stand at the ports and are looking for brands, they actually have a binder of brands that come in, of known brands. So if they know they're getting a shipment, a container, of certain brands, they will have a binder of what those logos should look like. So as they're checking in products from the port, they're actually cross-checking them against what the brand and the logos and even the certification mark should look like on product packaging to know whether those products can flow through or whether they should be held. And we've even had our manufacturers being called in the middle of the night by a port saying, hey, we have a shipment here. It doesn't quite look right. We're going to put it off to the side so you can test it. We have worked with Amazon to in their counterfeit crimes unit to seize products and get them removed and those sellers delisted once and for all. But really, you need to have all of these different groups involved in your efforts to stop or slow down these counterfeits. Retailers and online platforms, they're the closest to the consumer. They're the last stop for the consumers before they purchase a product. So they need to be aware and have policies and practices in place. And then also just, in your messaging, being able to seize all opportunities. If you're talking to customers, it might be that they're more swayed by health and safety messages. Some of them may be swayed by pricing, and it's a way to introduce the talk about counterfeits and what's happening in the market. Or, oh, sorry, I'm missing a letter. That's not a hat wave, that's a heat wave. We're in the middle of one right now in Washington, D.C. But heat waves also, listen, it's hot. Everyone's drinking water. So it's a good opportunity where people are looking for information on how to stay cool. to keep putting out your information about certification, about, water quality, about, about counterfeits, and not leaning into those products, but to look for products that are in fact genuine. So that was a little bit about the Filter It Out campaign. I hope we have a few questions. I certainly just want to let everyone know that you can feel free to visit filteritout.org. You can email me if you're interested in more information about the campaign, or having any kind of flyers or handouts available for people that may be talking to you about counterfeits, or if you're selling these products. I talked today about replacement refrigerator water filters, which is a fairly small sliver of the category. But of course, this applies to everything else. So, if there are opportunities to extend the partnership or to help co-brand with you, we'd be more than happy to do that. Okay, so I think now I'm moving into a Q&A section. I don't know if there are any there for me.
We do have a few questions. Jill, thank you very much. That was wonderful information. So we have a little bit in the Q&A. We have a little bit in the chat. I do see one person has their hand up. I'm going to ask that you go ahead and type your question into the Q&A. But there was a comment that there's a vulnerable community out in Spokane, Washington, with PFAS contamination, and it's not a big leap to say that PFAS filters for the home use are the next frontier for counterfeiting. And the question is, you mentioned flyers and such. So what type of information might this community be able to use to educate the community members?
Sure. So I think you mentioned PFAS. I think that transparency is one thing, and this is actually maybe a question back to the WQA technical folks. The standards, I think we have to be transparent about the standards as well. And there's some education that needs to be done within that as well. So you have the NSF ANSI 42, addressing aesthetics, really how the water looks and how it tastes. And then you have standard 53 to gets into health concerns. I believe that there are still other standards that, these are kind of building blocks, if you will, 401 for pharmaceuticals. But I think that it's a really good idea to talk about, what these standards do and what they're testing for. So I don't know if PFAS is if PFAS chemicals are filtered or are part of the standards testing. But if they are, obviously, that's something to educate on, that this is something that's available for people. And, even if it's not PFAS, if there are other contaminants in the water that could be compared to say these also have negative impact, make sure you're buying a genuine filter. So to be always going back and pressing on that message about a genuine product that is tested and certified to work would be a good idea.
Excellent. Do you have a feel for what percentage of the counterfeit filters come through Amazon?
That is interesting. I don't have numbers on exactly how many. At some point, and part of the problem is that there are just multitudes of listings and things that pop up every day. I do want to make a note that you mentioned Amazon. They're obviously a huge seller of products. And so, again, we've had some successes in working with Amazon. There are a number of online platforms out there and third-party platforms. So even I was on the phone last week with a manufacturer that is having issues seeing known counterfeiters pop up even on other platforms. I don't want to be too specific because you really need to have data to say these are counterfeiters, but Google has an entire section of sponsored links. I also want to put out there that even when you're using AI on some platforms, you can ask Google to find you counterfeit or to find you genuine filters, and they will come up with a number of listings. They may not all be genuine, even if you're asking for genuine manufacturer sold filters. There's even Sears and Walmart. They have third-party platforms in addition to their own products that are sold. They also bring in and incorporate third-party sellers into their platforms. So you can find products that you say, well, this one looks right. It actually could be a third-party seller. So it's always really important to check for that mark. If you go now to Amazon, there's one thing to sort of, to call out as you're shopping. Some manufacturers have their own stores set up so that you can be within a Samsung water filter store, and it truly is branded by the manufacturer. You can look at the seller, that it is coming from that seller directly. So it feels a little bit more trustworthy. It's still, of course, something you want to be aware of, but some of these groups have cleaned up their acts. The other thing I will note about one of the challenges that we were seeing happen was from some of the platforms where you can bulk ship filters and then they're separately sending stickers. You can order filters in bulk. You can order 100, 1,000 filters, and then you can tell that manufacturer, hey, I'd like them to be for this brand XYZ. They will separately send you by overnight mail a set of sticker labels that when you receive your filters, you can mark them yourself. So if you're a counterfeiter trying to do business, it's an easy way to access products and then label them yourself for sale. So that's a concern as well. Pardon.
All right. As far as the types of counterfeit filters that you're seeing, are you seeing this limited mainly to refrigerator filters or under the sink RO filters as well? All of this?
It's a widespread issue. And when, AHAM's membership is the group that started this program. And that's why our program was limited to refrigerator water filters, but we know that other companies, other brands are affected by this issue as well. So certainly it's not limited. If a counterfeiter is going to make money, if they can find a way to make money on it, they're going to. So I would say that there is nothing that, is immune to this issue.
Would you say then that it's safer to buy a product from a store or specific manufacturer rather than online?
Yeah. I think it just has to be a known, reputable seller. It could be someone that's really standing behind genuine products and talking about that. As long as you're able to trace the seller, I think knowing, of course, if you know that if you know that where the location is of the seller, that's even better, right? But I think in this day and age, we're not all looking for that. But you can do things to go to the manufacturer website and see what the product looks like. You can get a subscription maybe from the manufacturer for a filter, but at least if you know what the packaging looks like, then you can go online and say, okay, is it the same, is it the same exact packaging? Is it a little different? Is there a word that's misspelled? It's really about trying to find a reputable seller. So I really, of course, going back to the manufacturer directly is one way to do it. But otherwise, you just have to be really aware of what you're purchasing and really try to scrutinize.
Is there a question here for inspectors and sanitarians, because we do have a number of filters that are going into schools and such. Are there any obvious visual clues or paperwork clues that inspectors and sanitarians could look for to identify counterfeits during inspection?
Sure. So I think even having some things we have seen is that counterfeiters might adopt in the product packaging the manufacturer logos. They may not have the certification seal on the product packaging. And so if you're going and you know through the WQA website that this product has been certified, looking for that additional mark for that surety is really important. When you're looking at product packaging, making sure that, like I showed you on the graphics earlier, that they're not smeared. We've seen some products that have had little inserts, little, paper inserts in the product packaging that will say, if this product does not fit or cannot be installed properly, don't call the manufacturer, call this 1-800 number. Which is like, okay. So there are funny things that might tip you off to show you that, something is amiss here. But it's really about, looking at products, making sure there aren't misspellings, looking at the quality of the packaging, checking for those certification marks to see if they're there. Sometimes some manufacturers will even use a holographic mark to stay ahead, but it is a challenge, certainly.
One other question kind of following up on that, for a manufacturer, are there any best practices that they could put into designing their product or packaging that will make it harder to counterfeit?
Sure. So that's a great question. I mean, I think that some of the things that that we have seen manufacturers do, I think that, nothing is foolproof. And it's like you want to stay one step ahead of the counterfeiters. But of course, knowing your distribution, knowing who you're distributing to is part of that effort. Having monitoring online so you can see where your products are popping up, so you can see if they are in fact your products or if you're starting to be counterfeit. That's very important. Again, using something like the holograms, and there are different supplier groups that will have marks that you can use that maybe make it more challenging or more expensive for a counterfeiter to reproduce. Because if you're adding something that's gonna cost, and then a counterfeit has to do it too, they may not want to go that extra mile. They might not want to add that extra touch to the counterfeit product because they're just there to make $1. So if you can do anything to differentiate your product, but also including knowing your distribution and having a good monitoring service online, that's very important. There are, of course, products and ways that you can fit a product into the manifold and design specification. So those are things that you would have to work on as well.
And a question about the Filter It Out campaign itself. Do you have a measure of how effective the campaign has been?
Sure. So again, I think it's there. This is something that needs absolute constant, constant funding and constant work on a number of different ways. Our work is not only to educate consumers, because at the end of the day, they may already have the filter. They may be contacting or finding us after they have purchased the counterfeit product and suspecting that something is wrong. And a lot of them have. But our aim for this was really reaching out and having the data, being grounded in data to say, this is a big problem. This isn't just stealing logos. This is not just an IP violation, but this is truly a health and safety, concern as well. That kind of kicks it up a notch. And that's actually how, we've been able to work pretty successfully with Amazon in some cases on seizing units, having a 70,000 shipments of filters tucked aside from manufacturers to claim to see if they're counterfeit. So really some platforms have made truly very honest attempts to clean up their site. So again, just want to say here that it's not Amazon alone out there. They're not the only platform that is, has been subject to counterfeit issues. There are others out there. When we have seen seizures at the ports and special efforts, when we go to Department of Homeland Security and to the IPR Center, and we've called this out, we've seen all of a sudden they'll come to us and say, hey, we got in another big shipment of filters. And you can see some of the news reports about those. But this is truly whack-a-mole. The counterfeiters, there's thousands of them. They will not go away. We know it's an issue, so it's up to us to keep beating the drum on the messaging. That's really all we can do. So even any bit of success we've had, it's being met with thousands and thousands more counterfeits. But we're not going to stop doing, what we do. We encourage people to look for these genuine products. It's kind of like sign up for a subscription, set it and forget it, so you don't have to think about it, or look for a truly reputable source to buy your filters from.
And are there regulations that can help protect consumers from these counterfeit products?
Well, these products are illegal. They are stealing and violating IP. So at the end of the day, these are bad products that you should be able to return them or say, hey, seller, this is a known counterfeit product, or I'm tipped off to this counterfeiting, and then get a refund and be able to report it in some way. We do have, you can email our website for counterfeits, and we've had manufacturers follow up on those inquiries and then take action. Again, and it's a lot of times it means that at the end of the day, a manufacturer is not only going to have to talk to the seller, the website that sold it, but they may have to also work with, international, police and investigations to try to stop these counterfeiters. So it is extremely hard to do. It's very, very complicated. There have been some inroads on doing it, but it still remains a challenge.
And you mentioned a couple of enforcement activities at the ports. So do you have, I guess the question is, what are some consequences when the product is stopped at the ports? Is there any consequence to the counterfeiter themselves?
Sure. So I think like we saw in this video that I showed when Lee, the investigative reporter, even had an address to try to tie back to an address. That was even an address in Brooklyn. So it was local. It was somewhere where those authorities could go. This is literally going back to whatever port it came from and then coordinating those activities. So generally, there's it's just much more complex and much more difficult. And once these counterfeiters, get hold that what they're doing is illegal, or they've sold enough products, they will pop up a different website the next day. And, even if you do a Google search today, just for fun, you'll see how many of these sites all have the same frequently asked questions. They all do things that are similar that might tip you off and say, oh, these are funny responses, or they don't have an FAQ. It's not a complete sentence. It's a little different than what you would expect from a reputable seller, and that will tip you off as well. But usually, if there's even a cease and desist or something, they can if it even reaches someone, they can take it down. They'll pop it up somewhere else, or it's a different known address. So again, it's very difficult, but that's why going to the platforms, going to Amazon, going to Google, going to Alibaba, and calling these things out where there is some type of a responsible party in the U.S. that we can talk to is part of our activity as well.
All right. Well, you're right. That definitely sounds like whack-a-mole. And it sounds like there's good information on your website that if our members wanted to use to educate consumers, they could do that as well.
Absolutely. have a
All right.
direct line to the people that you're talking to every day. That would be a great help.
Okay, and I think we'll take one last question. You mentioned the efforts with Amazon, and you mentioned Walmart. Uh, is there any effort as part of this to make them legally responsible for the validity of the products that they're selling?
There are certain actions, even working, and there's certain efforts that are even being developed now that aren't quite there yet, but even working with a group like Amazon, they do have a checklist of requirements for sellers. So for every single product category, they will have, a requirement that either the product is certified, they may have a WQA certification listed or an NSF or different standards that you need to meet. And then you need to have the documentation before you become a known listed seller. So those are some of the avenues, and we're trying to work actually with Amazon on some of these compliance issues to make sure that there is enough there are enough requirements, that there are the right requirements, and that maybe we could help facilitate on some of those known genuine products that meet those standards. So there are things that sellers are doing. I think the message here is that the counterfeiters are always going to try to be one step ahead. So truly, that's where you can be armed with the information and then deliver that directly to the consumer. Know it for your own personal good. Talk about it with friends and family. It's not just your Louis Vuitton bag or your expensive shoes. It's not just Nikes. It can be anything, any mundane household item, because that's the one that you would least expect. So just go armed with information, and keep your eyes open to what you're purchasing. That's truly the best advice. It feels very vague in some ways, but look for the certification seals, look for clear product packaging without typos or misspellings, and also know that if the price is really that low, maybe it's too good to be true, frankly. So those are all, little tips to offer. And then, of course, your certification groups, your associations, we all continue to band together to try to, make a dent on the advocacy side, working with government, and working with online sellers as well.
Well, thank you so much, Jill. I'm going to toss this back to Lilia.
Okay, thanks so much for having me.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Jill. That was an amazing presentation about counterfeit filters. Thank you all attendees for all your questions. I have a few reminders before I let you go. A follow-up email will be sent out with a link to this recording. Our next summer school session is on July 23rd, and this session will explore a current research study on the retention of PFAS in spent water filters. Additionally, if you are a WQA certified personnel, you can earn 0.1 CPD by attending this live presentation. And for additional credits, you can complete a short quiz that will be emailed after. So if anyone has any additional questions, please email us at foundation@wqf.org. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you when school is back in session on July 23rd.
Thank you.